Welcome back. With us right now is the board president of United Mutual. I'd like to welcome Juanita Skillman. Good to see you again, as always.
Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, your meeting was regular monthly board meeting, I should say.
It was a marathon meeting this week, and I apologize to our residents who had to go out and part of it, or when they tried to rebroadcast it, see it again. It was so long because it was almost 6 hours. But we had some very special things. One of the things that we try to do in United is to keep our residents informed as much of what is going on. The people keep saying, I never knew about that, or whatever. And there's information, yes, as directors that we get that we need to make sure that the community gets as well. So this time we had 3 of our VMS directors on who had given us some wonderful information at VMS meetings, and we wanted to share it with our residents. So that's what kind of pushed out the meeting a little bit.
Right, and you had on Chris Spar, also Ernesto
about,
Munoz, and Chief Tim Moy.
Right, and Chris talked about resident services, which impacts all of us, and what they've done downstairs and what they have planned for the new year. And she gave some wonderful statistics on how often or how long it takes to answer a call and those kinds of things. And I thought, our residents seem to know that, want to know that, because often it's just the rumor mill that says,
right,
I didn't get the service that I wanted. Well, we're never going to get everybody every time, but that worked really well. And then we had our election for appointment to the VMS board. Each mutual has 3 members on the VMS board, and they're on alternating terms, so they each have a 3-year term that one of them comes up every year for reappointment. And we were very pleased that we had 4 candidates, and Dick Rader, who has been an interim since Joe Rainey went on the city council, was reelected. Dick's been doing a really great job, and we're very pleased to see him going to be representing us for the next 3 years on VMS. Then, as part of the CEO report, we asked Tim Moy to report, because we'd had the incident the weekend before where they were digging and hit an electrical line, and the power went off, and because it was up by Headworks, the TV went off. You know, I got calls that night, and only 2 of them were about my electricity is off. The rest were all, my TV's off. My TV's off. When's my TV coming back on? Some came on earlier than others, and we did have a few houses, Manners, that were affected more with the electricity. But Tim brought us up to date, and I think the really important thing that we got out of his report was our disaster recovery task force is really an emergency preparedness task force, and it goes for what we call incidents, such as this was. It's not just for major earthquakes. Right. And so he went through what they did and how they formed the incident team and who was involved and that kind of thing. And we just want residents to know that we do have these things in place for any kind. And I know every day when we turn the TV on and see these horrible fires up in north of Los Angeles, but we live next to a wilderness area. It's possible that we could have a fire down here.
Yes, that's true.
And our incident emergency task force would be in place then, and we want people to have a little bit more comfort that we're doing what we need for them. On our consent calendar, we approved 6 alterations, and we denied 1. We had 5 liens against member units who were in arrears for their assessments. And then we got to what we call unfinished business, and it's kind of a misnomer.
Right.
Unfinished business means these are the things that have gone through the process. They've gone through committee, they've been read the first time, and now they're up for a final vote.
Right.
And so the things that we did vote on were a resolution for a fee schedule for unit alterations that hadn't been updated in a long time. And when we were looking back over the past year, we saw how much money we were losing. We decided to up that just a little bit. And then a conformance deposit for contractors, which is refundable if there's no problems. But what we have found is sometimes there are problems. They mess up the landscape, or they put things in our dumpsters that they shouldn't, or there are a lot of different things that could happen with them. And so with the conformance deposit, we don't have to go after them after the fact. We just take it out of the conformance deposit. And assuming everything went well and there's no problems, it's refundable. They get that performance deposit back. We adopted a resolution for handling and destroying recordings of executive board meetings. And as I've mentioned before, this is just a safeguard that we do because our meetings are fast and furious and people are talking back and forth. And we try to keep that down as much as possible, but just so that we always know what's going on, who made a motion, who seconded a motion, that kind of thing. We record them. And in committee meetings too, it's the same way. And after the minutes or the report of the meeting have been reviewed and signed off on, then we destroy the recordings.
Okay.
These are not there forever. So we finished that.
And of course, we have them because
You've got the
right,
tape,
exactly.
right? And that's something we should let people know. If there's a meeting that you can go on YouTube and look at it, or you can come up here and get a CD
Right,
and have it. We had a motion to make our window attachments and windows a standard. One of the things that the Alterations Committee, and I know Janie has talked about this, is trying to do is to have standards wherever we can so that we don't have to have people go through the time and expense, et cetera, of a variance if it's not needed.
Okay.
And then last but not least, we adopted the amended financial qualifications policy. One of the things that we added was, how do you become a member? How do you know when you're a member? And there were the three things, like you get your certificate and you sign your occupancy agreement, but we forgot to put in close of escrow. And our property services department let us know they have a drawer full of applications with certificates in them of people who have applied for membership and never closed escrow. So it never finalized, it never went through. So we wanted to be sure include that in our regulations. And the other thing that we did, and this is something I think is really important for our residents to know, we confirmed that we require a background check and a credit report for all, whether they are initially getting a lease or if they are subleasing. Now, I know there's been a lot of things in the paper and talk around because Third rescinded this regulation for Third. We did not, and we have documented it now. And it comes down to the fact that in United Mutual is the landlord. We own all of the property. And when people buy in, they buy a right to occupy their manor in 3-year periods. Almost never have we cut them off and not renewed it after 3 years, but that we can do that. There has been a couple of disciplinary things where we've had to do that. And the subleases, they are not the landlords. The members may sublease their unit, but the landlord is United. And so we want to know who's living in our community.
Okay.
We want to make sure they're safe. Seniors are vulnerable, especially around this time of year, folks. Don't give in to any of the scams you're getting on radio, on telephone. So we keep close watch on what's happening there. Now, the next thing we do is new business, and new business is the first step of the process, and that's where we have the first reading of something that is proposed, a resolution that is proposed. And again, this was a little unclear in the Globe this week where it said that we unanimously passed an anti-discrimination policy. We unanimously passed moving it on to our February meeting for final approval.
Okay.
So usually there's 30 days between meetings and it goes
That's
from
right.
one to another, but 5 times this year it's been not quite 30
Right.
days, 29 days or whatever, and that's the way it is between December and January. So all of the things that we introduced and did first readings for at our December meeting will go to our February meeting for final
Right.
action.
So people have plenty of time.
That gives people plenty of time to give us their input. And so a couple of things that we did move ahead were modifications to the financial qualifications policy, and this is probably the one that we're going to get the most
Right.
community interest in, because it's been proposed that we raise the minimum income, not the assets, but the minimum income for new people buying shares in the community from $36,000 to $40,000. And we had so much data and we've done so much research on this that shows that we're the least expensive place in Orange County to live. But we are not low-income housing, and we need to make sure that people buying in have the resources
Right,
to live
exactly.
here. And so we're at the even with 40,000, we're at the bottom of the scale, and it's not as much as it costs to live in Third. But we thought it was important that we make that adjustment. We also introduced a resolution to adopt another new standard, this one on bathroom splits. Some of them have our units have one large bathroom and they like to split them into 2 smaller ones, and that's fine. Now, the one thing that we did go through that does not require 30-day notification was earthquake insurance. Both GRF and Third have earthquake insurance and United didn't. And so we had our broker come in, we had presentations, we went through all of the background, what do we want to do, how are we going to do it, what's the pros, what's the cons, and we decided to buy earthquake insurance add-on to our property damage and all that policy. But I want to emphasize to all of our residents that this is for the buildings. This is United's earthquake policy, and it does not cover anything within your unit. You have to have, just as you have HO6 insurance right now for what's in your unit, you need to have an add-on to that policy that would cover earthquakes for your personal stuff in your units. All we insure is the buildings.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's an important note to make, and that's true, as you always say, for any of the insurance.
right,
Yeah.
right. And then, of course, we did not pass, we introduced the anti-discrimination policy. And this is something that our legal counsel had said we need to have, and it is state mandated, and the wording comes from the state, and it is a little legalese, and we kind of fought it a little bit because it says the same thing over and over and over again, but that's the way
Right.
the state law says it, so we thought we better do it just the way they did. We went to our committee reports and we kind of kept them short because everything else that had been going on and had pushed the meeting out a little bit. One of the things I did want to say are executive hearings that we meet once a month. We have an executive hearings committee, and they hear 3 different kinds of things in these hearings that have to be noticed, that go through compliance or damage restoration, and there's a formula that has to be done for all of those to make them legal. And the first type is damage restoration. If you have damage to your unit and it's to an alteration, often we fix it, but then we charge you back whatever those charges are. And then we also have, of course, disciplinary, and the primary disciplinary things are illegal occupants. What we found out this time is there are certain churches who are encouraging their members to take in homeless.
Wow.
And if they have an extra room, so they're being good. That's not allowed. You can't do that. And so
Okay.
we had a couple of those.
Wow, I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the first time we'd heard, well, where did they come from? Well, my church gave them to me and said they needed a place to stay or whatever, so can't do that. And then the big thing, and you heard yesterday, if you were listening to this day, which I hope you were, Ernesto Munoz came and talked to us about maintenance and construction and all of the things that are happening and are anticipated to happen. And a lot of people think, well, you raised our dues, $8, what are we getting for it? Well, this is what you're getting for it. And he went into detail with the waistline remediation and the dry rot and some of these other things that are going on. And they're not cheap. The cost of living goes up, and every time one of my residents says to me, well, when I bought in here in 2010, my HOA dues were 200 and something. And I said, yeah. And what was the cost of a loaf of bread or a gallon of milk or a gallon of gas at that time too? Everything keeps going up. And even though we try so hard to keep a lid on it,
Yeah, that's true.
those things do happen. So that basically is it, and we're going to look at those ones that I said we had the first reading on at our February meeting. And at our January meeting, we're asking 2 other of our directors to come in. Kurt, terrible on last names, Wayland, anyway. Damage restoration.
Yes, we just had him on the other day.
Anyway, he's going to talk a little bit about damage restoration and alterations, and then Bruce is going to talk to us about residential services and what's going on with all those kinds of things. So,
all right, very good.
A lot going on, lot going on, even though it's the holiday season.
Yes, and that meeting will be replayed for you again on Wednesday of next week at 6 o'clock. I think the open meeting process, I think it was 4.5 hours. So that's about, I think, what we clocked it at. So if you want to tune in then.
And then we went to a closed meeting, so it was quite late before we got
Yes, I'm sure
out.
it was. I thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I won't see you again.
Appreciate it. Probably not, so I wish you
I mean, I may see you, but I should say
Yes,
see you
I won't be on.
Here until next year.
Yeah, I think Maggie will be on next week with Landscape
I
Report.
think so. Yeah.
So
happy holidays, happy New
wish
Year.
everybody happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, joyous Kwanzaa, and what was it that Steinfeld
Festivus.
used to say? Festivus for all of us.
Yes, there you go. We'll be right back.